We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself.
And there you have it. Yes, she was stunned. She was convicted. It only took the jury 3 hours and 14 minutes. I usually get these things right. I'll give my predictions. I said verdict would be today. Maybe that was wishful thinking on my part, because today I would have been available to cover that verdict live. Yesterday, I was at a doubleheader ball game, so I did not get to cover. I was in the middle of the second game when this verdict came through. I was in a very boring spot in the park yesterday because, it's a lot to explain. But anyway, I was there wristbanding whatever people may have come along that just wandered upon this game that nobody knew about. Anyway, so I'm listening to the trial. I listened to the rest of the closing arguments, and when it was over, I thought, okay, they'll deliberate tonight. They'll have dinner. They'll elect a foreperson, and then they will we'll reconvene tomorrow, and we'll see what the verdict is. Because it's going to be a Friday, and they're not going to want to go back to work today. Oh boy, was I wrong. Anyway, so the closing arguments for the government were done by Georgia Kappelman, who she makes a comment later on. She says, listen, this case is in my DNA, which she's not wrong. She's not wrong about that. She has tried every one of these cases. Now, personally, I think the other woman knows the case as well as Georgia does, and does an excellent job whenever did she even do any? She might have done the openings in this one, or maybe Georgia did the openings as well. I don't know, but she's done openings and closings in Charlie's case, and she did a bang-up job. But anyway, Georgia did a bang-up job as well, because like I said, it's in her DNA. In any case, just a little bit about the closing arguments that the defense gave. First of all, we knew from the beginning of the day where this thing was headed, because the first thing the defense does, they come in and they're like, well, we changed our mind. And everybody was thinking, okay, here it comes. Donna Adelson's changing her mind. She's going to testify, because she had opted not to testify wisely, I might add, because it would not have helped her in any way, shape, or form. She would have just buried herself with more circumstantial evidence that she committed these crimes. In any case, that wasn't what they wanted. It was, she hadn't changed her mind. And, because I'm ready for the judge to be like, come to Jesus. No, that wasn't it. They had changed their mind about what counts should go on the verdict form. We want all the lesser included offenses taken off. Now, this is a roll the dice, a huge gamble on the part of the defense. They're gambling. Well, here's what they wanted off the table. They wanted the second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter that the jury would have been able to go down to. If they had said not guilty for the first degree, they could have gone to second degree, and they could have gone to manslaughter. But the defense is like, no. Actually, I think it's the prosecution that threw the dice. It's not the defense. I'm getting this wrong. This is smart on the part of the defense. Now the jury, without these lesser included offenses, it's all or nothing. Either you think that there was evidence, whether it's direct or circumstantial, that Donna Adelson intended and or premeditated the murder of Dan Markel. There's no evidence of that. Therefore, they're not going to be able to find my client guilty of anything because there's no lesser included offenses on the verdict form anymore. So now the prosecution, they're the ones that come in and roll the dice because, if they leave these lesser included there, then the jury can fall down to something in the event of a not guilty of first degree. In the event the jury somehow believes that through the totality of everything that they've heard, and this is key, the totality, this case cannot be looked at any other way than through the totality of the circumstances. You have to look at not just one little thing, but all of these things add up. Yes. So if for some reason you can get past the totality of the circumstances and believe that Donna Adelson did not intend the murder of Dan Markel, did not premeditate it, did not plan it, did no steps to forward this murder, and you find not guilty, then there's not going to be any lesser included offenses for you to go to. So this is a huge gamble on the part of the prosecution. They're so confident in their case that they are saying, okay, we're willing, take it off the verdict form. Take it off. We'll prove intent. Yeah. Hold my beer. Well, with me, it's coffee. Hold my coffee. I got you. Okay. I'll show the jury. There's intent. And she did. Georgia Capwoman showed them the intent. She's like, let me at him. She's been on fire for this whole trial. Georgia Capwoman has. Okay. So during the, so now you see where the closings are going. Everybody's focusing on before the murder. What did Donna Adelson do to further this conspiracy or, intend that Dan Markel be murdered? So they played one of the bump phone calls. There was lots of parts to this bump. Some people say there was 4 separate bumps, but the police were constantly trying to get this chatter, keep it going, So at one point, Donna Adelson is on the phone with this guy who's trying to extort her. And she's saying, listen, if you've got all this information, just go get the reward. Go get the money from the police because I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what if you were. Here's the thing. If you're not guilty, this is what the argument that the defense is making. If you're not guilty, wait a minute, if you're guilty, you're not sending people to the police. So this is their argument. My client must be not guilty because she's sending this person that's trying to extort her to the police. If she were really guilty of this crime, she would not send them to the police. I think towards the end of this bump, Charlie and Donna were catching on. They were getting made. They knew that this was either the police or the people, the gang members trying to extort them for more money. And at no time during this phone call does she talk about any prior extortion. Like she never talks about, the time before when they were extorted, which was Charlie's defense, that he was being extorted by Catherine McManua and her cronies, Baby Daddy and Luis Rivera, cooked up this scheme, this murder, so they could extort Charlie Adelson out of money. That was his defense. That mom had adopted this defense. It's crazy, isn't it? Just crazy. So then she talked about, she just kept trying to hammer home that there was no intention, no premeditation, until we don't see Donna responsible or evidence against Donna until after the murder, when she starts paying these checks at the behest of her son to this woman. But she doesn't know. It's an ex-girlfriend. Anyway. Then they talk about the visa. The defense says, this was a tourist visa. It didn't say a permanent resident. It said tourist on it. It was good for 90 days. They could come and go as they please. They only packed, they had their wallets, their credit cards, their driver's license, and 2.5 suitcases. 2 suitcases and a carry-on, 2 pieces of luggage, a carry-on. And that was it. They weren't moving anywhere. They were just going on a little vacation. Well, and they made fun of because I'm trying to say Georgia Kappelman has said, they were going on vacation, when she's talking about what the defense is saying. She's like, we never said it was a vacation. We just said that she needed to go. She was thinking about offing herself. She needed to go clear her head. Her husband was really concerned about her health. And so they were going over there so she could get her shit together, basically. And then she would come back for the bar mitzvah and then go back if they wanted to. The return date on the visa was after the bar mitzvah. But she claims she would have come back for the bar mitzvah. Newsflash. She didn't get to the bar mitzvah. Anyway, none of them, because they both occurred by now. In any case, the defense is arguing the most that she's guilty of is wanting to aggravate him. She wanted to aggravate him. The most she could be found guilty of is trying to aggravate Dan Markel. So, this little old lady didn't do it. I'm telling you, she didn't do it. But here's what the prosecution points out, and rightfully so. Listen, what I'm saying to you is not evidence. What they're saying to you is not evidence. The way I think things went down is not evidence. The way they think things went down is not evidence. It matters what you think went down. Go back there, look at the evidence, and then you tell us what you think Donna Adelson is guilty of. Now that's ballsy. There she goes, throwing them dice. Intention. And here's what I'm asking you to do. There are too many coincidences in this trial. Can you explain away every single thing? Maybe 1, maybe 2, but you've got to look at the totality of all of these coincidences. And what are you left with? That she intended the death of Dan Markel. She hated this man. The prosecution pointed out that Wendi Adelson told her mom, I'm giving up. I'm going to live with my boys in Tallahassee. We're going to buy it. And her mom's like, no, you're not giving up. You're not giving up. We will do what we need to do so that you can move those boys down to South Florida. She had an itch that just couldn't be scratched any other way. She wanted them boys in South Florida where she had control over their lives. So the verdict, it's sent to the jurors. They dismiss 2 of the 14. They're sent home. And the other 12 go to deliberate. Now it's about a little after 4:00 Eastern time. So I figured they're going to go back there, elect a 4-person, order dinner, and then talk for a little while, look at a little bit of the evidence, maybe hear some of if they're not nauseous already from hearing those video recordings over and over again. In any case, I never expected they would come back last night. I should have known that, though, because historically, Charlie Adelson's trial verdict came in almost as quickly. They were within minutes of each other, these verdicts. Now, I do want to play a little bit of this verdict for you. Let me pull it up here. Now, pay attention to the judge. He's so good. I just love this guy. He is cautioning Donna, not just the audience, but Donna. And he's not doing it from the bench. He is out in the courtroom. Watch this.
Before the jurors are brought in and the verdict is published, I'd like to make sure everyone understands whatever the verdict will be in the case. I do not want there to be any gesturing or any making any movements that you either agree or disagree with the verdict. We are going to respect what the jury's decision is, and we are not going to subject them to any displays of emotion, whether it be from the gallery or the parties. If anyone believes they are not capable of following this instruction, I'd ask you to step outside at this time. Mrs. Adelson also as well, once the verdict is read, again, I'm going to advise you, do not have any displays of emotion. As best you can, you are in control yourself. Do you understand? In review the verdict form, it is in its proper order. At this time, I will publish the verdict. We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself. Count two. We, the jury, find as follows as the count two of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count three. We, the jury, find as follows as the count three of the indictment, solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by the foreperson. One moment. Members of the jury, the bailiff will escort you to the jury room. Mrs. Adelson, while this was not the outcome I'm sure that you desired, there will not be any further outbursts in front of the jury. If you cannot control yourself, I am going to have to determine if you will be removed from the remainder of this process. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes. Yes.
Do you need a moment to collect yourself? Before the jurors are brought back in, we will take a brief 2-minute break.
So that was her response, to this guilty verdict. Did she really expect a not guilty verdict? It's like she thought, oh, I'm not guilty. They're going to find me not guilty. Totally disconnected from reality, this woman. I think one of the reasons defendants, for the most part, are very quiet, they don't want to affect their appeal, obviously, but I think it's because they know down deep they're responsible for what happened. And she just doesn't have a clue that what she did had consequences. Like she doesn't honestly think she did anything wrong. She doesn't believe that she did anything wrong, this woman. So she truly believes that she's not guilty of anything. She didn't pull the trigger. I didn't pull the trigger. I have nothing to do with it. I don't know these men. It doesn't matter, honey. You hired them. You paid them. You gave them cash to do this that you laundered first for some God knows reason. Any case, we had some reactions throughout the community that I thought were really, really good. Unfortunately, Dan Markel's mother, Ruth, got cut off on court TV, so I don't have that footage for you. She spoke so eloquently, but she does address the media and thanks the media, thanks to podcasters for keeping Dan Markel's name alive out there. And we intend to keep it alive so that he is brought to justice, so that Wendi Adelson is brought to justice. Absolutely, we will do that for you. But let me play some of her out of court, outside the courtroom. So just to wrap this whole thing up with Donna first, she was not sentenced. She was adjudicated guilty of first degree murder, conspiracy to commit first degree murder, and solicitation to commit first degree murder. So he can go ahead and sentence her on count 1. But on counts 2 and 3, the prosecution can ask for, or the defense can ask for, a pre-sentence investigation. And they did. So on counts 2 and 3, which are the conspiracy and the solicitation, and depending on how you look at the law, because the law's kind of changed in Florida on conspiracy and solicitation as far as what you need to prove. But in any case, under 1, you can get up to life in prison for each count. Under the other, you can get up to 30 years. So she's looking at a significant amount of time above and beyond the life in prison without the possibility of parole that she's going to be serving for count 1, which is the first degree murder count. So in any case, once he adjudicates her guilty, because Dan Markel's parents, and they are split up, by the way, Ruth and Phil Markel, but they're both there. They're both there to support each other, even though they're no longer together. She's a huge political activist, very, very well spoken, has written a book, has been very, very instrumental in getting some legislation pushed through Florida that now allows grandparents to have certain rights, even though for the first 6 years of those boys' lives, the grandchildren's, they were not part of it. And since the legislation has gone into effect, they have only been allowed to visit with their grandsons once. And she said it was very orchestrated, very orchestrated. So, because they're from Toronto, Phil and Ruth, they were allowed to go ahead and give their victim impact statements live in front of this judge, because it'll be the same judge at sentencing in October when it's scheduled for. So they went ahead and gave their opening statements. Court TV cut them off, but very, very impactful, very, like I said, Ruth is a masterful speaker. She spoke so eloquently about her son and how, he was a son, a colleague, a mentor, a friend. So many people lost so many things. Even in this case, all of these children lost parents. Luis Rivera he's got children that lost their parent. Sergio Garcia and Catherine Magbanawa, those children lost both their parents. Charlie Adelson had a son. His son no longer has a father or grandmother. And Donna, it just goes on and on. All these people, all these children, these grandchildren, whose lives are forever affected by this. And Ruth spoke really, really eloquently about the whole thing. And then later on, she, outside the courtroom, addressed the press and again thanked everybody, including the podcasters, for keeping Dan Markel's name alive in the media. Absolutely, we will, right through the trial of Wendi Adelson. Because do I believe she'll be arrested? Absolutely. But the other thing I have to say, the prosecution redeemed herself. Georgia Kaufman, I want to show you when she walks outside to the media, she is like somebody, even I think you can hear them say she's like the Tiger Woods of prosecutors, and she redeemed herself with me. The suit she had on, to die for. Let me show you this because, but watch when she walks out, because what is everybody's question going to be? What the question is going to be. When are you going to try Wendi? When are you arresting Wendi Adelson? And she walks out and she's like, don't ask. Don't ask. Don't. And then I love how that when the whole thing's over, she's like, you really want to be that guy? You're going to be that guy. Because somebody finally did ask the question. She's like, You're going to be that guy that asked the question, aren't you? Anyway, the bottom line is yes, everybody will be brought to justice. That they can possibly bring to justice, they will be brought to justice. Now, when? We don't know. So take a look at this because it's so good. It's so good. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Oh, I guess I have to start it. 1 second. Let me get it started.
About this. So before we ask you the question,
nobody's going to do that.
What's it like in this moment? What was it like to have this defendant be found?
Hey, Sarah.
I think I just feel kind of honored to be able to deliver this win for the Markels. You know, we've heard so much about a win for the Adelsons, a win for the Adelsons, and everything that was lost in those efforts. So it's just been really cool to be a part of this win.
During one of the pre-trials, you said these trials that have become my life. It's a lot of trials at this point. Talk about what happens when you're a prosecutor and you have to continue to follow cases like this here.
Well, I mean, I do have other cases. People don't know that. There are other cases. And I hear about, all of them, but obviously this has become sort of part of my DNA after investing so much blood, sweat, and tears into this case. And yet, so yeah, it's been
Was this one tougher than Charlie's trial?
I don't know. I mean, I'm older, so I think it is. I think everyone's tougher than the last. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, more time passes and there's more stuff. There's more phones. There's more records. There's more emails. So it's a lot to organize, and it's a lot of little pieces to try to put together and try to create something cognizable that a jury can follow and get their head around.
Georgia, opening statements right out of the gate, all for appropriated Professor Markel's nickname, calling him Danny. A lot of people were upset about that. Did that bother you?
Not as much as it bothered some other folks. I understood what she was trying to do. It was not the classiest move, and I think she kind of realized that and seemed to correct that over the course of the trial. But yeah, probably not a great move.
And what about the amount of deliberations? It's roughly the same as Charlie, maybe a few minutes more. That surprised you because some people were being longer.
A little bit. I actually lost. I thought it would be slightly shorter, but I was being ambitious. But yeah, it wouldn't have surprised me if it had been more difficult for them because it was a large puzzle that kind of had to be put together. But I guess they got what they needed and they knew what they had to do.
Were you surprised? Sorry, go ahead.
You are asking.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I have different. You're surprised by the defense strategy of throwing Wendi and Charlie under the bus, and was the adoptive admissions ruling something that you pre-planned or something that you all came up with at the last moment?
We had a few incarnations of how to deal with the fact that she had adopted Charlie's really ridiculous story previously, and we didn't want her to be able to distance herself from that and create a new, better defense, which she did seem to kind of try to be doing. So we did want to try to shove that on her and then, try to explain that to the jury. Okay, here's this whole other defense that she already adopted, and it has all its pushback that goes with it. So it did feel like a difficult minefield to wade through to be able to explain all that to the jury, but we wanted to make sure they understood that, hey, she's already committed to this defense that's a loser, and now she's trying to switch it up and go to this whole other place, and you got to pick a lane. You can't be both. So I think that's kind of what we were trying to do. So hopefully we were successful.
So that is Georgia Kappelman's press conference. I'm not showing this to you in its entirety because this is a recap show, but that is the trial of Donna Adelson. She will be sentenced in October. Here's the part that I wanted to show you this part, and I wasn't able to find it, but the judge was this is where he showed his compassion, because he seems very hard line with Donna Adelson. You will not show emotion, which that's the only issue I have with this whole thing. Like, let her show her emotion. Who cares? Let her, that's a very difficult thing to control. It really is. And one of the most frequent questions I get is, why is this defendant not showing any emotion? I don't know. And that's always been my answer. I have no idea how they're not showing any emotion. I wear my heart on my sleeve. You know everything I'm thinking, saying, what's going on in my head because it shows on my face. I would be one of those defendants. I wouldn't even need a lawyer because I'd be head bobbing. Yeah. You can't control my emotions. But here's what he did as she's being taken out of the courtroom, as she's being taken away. He says, bailiff, or whoever, corrections, please make sure that she gets a proper evaluation, that she's taken to a place where she can be evaluated and where she will not be able to harm herself. He could see the writing on the wall there, as could I. She's going to be needing, and they do this with all convicts. They do put them in a certain amount of time into suicide observation, because it's devastating to know that you're going to life for prison. It's one thing to maybe you're going to life for prison. Now you're going to life for, you're 70 years old, you're going to spend like she could have been sentenced to 10 years, it would have been life in prison. You're going away forever. And your son's already gone away. It's possible your daughter is next. And it all has to do with something you think you didn't do. And this whole case has just been horrible. But I will continue to follow the Wendi Adelson matter, because I think that is an arrest that will be, once the dust settles from Wendi, Freudian slip, once the dust settles from Donna, I think Wendi will be next. And we know Donna was really only accelerated because she tried to flee. Or else would we have sat through the trial that we sat through? When were they going to actually arrest her if it wasn't on that jetway? Because they didn't issue a warrant for her arrest until she was at the airport. Then they waited for her. The prosecution, the defense points this out. They waited for her. They wanted to make it a really big show. They waited for her. They were sitting in the concourse with her, waiting for this flight. They could have arrested her then. There was a warrant, but they waited until boarding, until she's on the jetway, so they could make a scene, and then they arrest her. Anyway, I could go on and on about this case. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What are we going to do next? I have no idea, but it's always fun on this channel. And I will see you in the next video, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you later. Bye.